Welcome back to my review of the Persona 3 movies, which I've happily titled Back to Iwatodai. If you haven't watched the last two videos in the series, I highly recommend clicking the card in the top right, as this is my review of Persona 3 the movie, Falling Down, and there are two more movies behind this. Going into this one, I expected it to cover up until the end of December, but this movie actually only covers until the beginning of December, and it starts a whole month after Midsummer Night's Dream. One thing I acknowledged towards the end of my watch-along, which is linked in the description, is that the pacing for these movies feels really off. The first movie covered about 3 months, which set the bar for me in my opinion, as it neatly splits up all 4 movies into their respective seasons. This movie in particular barely covers the events of 2 months, and while they are the most story-driven months in Persona 3, the movie falls flat in some regards. To start, Falling Down is heavily focused on the relationship between Ryoji and Mikoto, and while that's not necessarily a bad thing in terms of writing, it crumbles when you realize that most of their interaction in the movie is, well, movie only. While playing through Persona 3 FES in these months, Ryoji always felt more like Junpei's friend. Sure, he hung around the group, but most of the interactions were stuff like him playing games in Junpei's room, or babe hunting with the man. Watching Ryoji and Mikoto interact is nice, and heightens the stakes come the next movie, but it feels very forced. The bright side of this is Ryoji starts a problem solver club, which the writers use as a chance to introduce more of the social links.
Goes up and asks out every girl he sees. Chihiro! And fucking, smoking in the boys' room, Odagiri. I don't remember his first name.
Granted, it's not everyone I wanted. Akinari, please, I miss you. But any sign of the side characters is a plus. The movie opens on the November 4th full moon operation, the Hangman fight featuring Strega. I was initially disappointed that they skipped over Akihiko and Ken's awakenings, and this disappointment was made even worse when I saw Chidori had Junpei tied up in the fight. Over the course of the last movie, I noticed they had skipped over most of Junpei and Chidori's relationship. See, in-game, Chidori kidnaps Junpei on September 5th, and most of September and October are spent on establishing their relationship and explaining her outlook on life. All of that character growth for Junpei is crammed into this one movie, which, while I understand from a writing perspective, makes their relationship feel really forced. The only saving grace for this restructuring is giving more weight to Junpei's awakening, as I feel his is the most story-driven. Akihiko's still my favorite though. Early on, I noticed that some of the animation felt very choppy during the action sequences, and while watching, I attributed it to a lower budget. With the story being split into 4 movies, I figured the quality would vary, as I assumed they'd be worked on with one continuous budget. I figured most would be saved for the final fight and movie, and using a big chunk at the beginning to draw in viewers makes sense too, so it only tracks that some cuts had to be taken. What shocked me was the usage of CGI for action scenes. I googled it and found that Falling Down was released in 2015, which is right around the time CG began its widespread use in anime as a cost-saving measure. It sounds counterintuitive, but animating a 3D rig is a lot easier than staying on model for 24 frames a second. Some of my favorite anime heavily utilize CG action. Sea Control, Chainsaw Man, even Akira uses it in some scenes. It wasn't necessarily bad in this movie, just took me out for a second. On the contrary to the visuals, every moment of the soundtrack is amazing. Letting Lotus Juice take control in moments led me to head bopping even during some of the slower stuff. Movie 3 also covers the reveal of Ikutsuki's betrayal, and the subsequent crucifixion of the party and death of Papa Kirijo.
And we get crucified. I forgot. And they both die.
This felt as predictable as it did in-game, but at least we get some shots of the inside of Ikutsuki's office, and some insight into who Strega are before January 31st. Ikutsuki's betrayal also leads us to the Kyoto trip, which is structured very similarly to the Yakushima trip, in an almost juxtaposition of sorts. Just like Yakushima, they condense the major events into one day, and then provide us with a neat montage of Cease enjoying their trip, all culminating in...
Fuck!
Look, I know this horse has been beat to death in the fandom, and I definitely hated it during my Persona 3 Everyday series. But this hot springs trope has gotta go. I knew it was going to be bad going in, as the whole movie I noticed more, shall we say, gratuitous horniness. There's ass shots, strange camera angles, and yet the weird sexual tension and Yuri joke was removed between Yukari and Mitsuru. If I could define falling down in 3 words, it would be horny, rushed, and filler. All words to describe my sex life. The only saving grace of the Hot Springs trip was the brief moment I believed Junpei would take the fall for the guys. He lost his towel.
みんなだけでも先に脱出してくれ。
何言ってるんだ。順平くんも一緒に。さあ。
無理なんだよ。
順平。やはりお前。
だって俺はタオルが。
No! Wait, you're gonna get found out, bro! This Junpei's sacrificing himself. Okay.
葉っぱだ。葉っぱがある。
All in all, I feel this is the weakest of the movies so far, and I hope that stays the case. Flubbing the ending of Persona 3 is almost impossible, as the basic outline itself could be considered peak fiction. Okay, maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, but with the way Falling Down turned out, I'm a little skeptical. Hopefully the final Persona 3 movie, Winter of Rebirth, can attempt to redeem this one. What I'm hoping for specifically is more expansion on Strega, as I feel January 31st in-game already feels pretty rushed, as it's back-to-back fights. I also mentioned this in the watch-along, but if the credits theme isn't Memories of You, this whole experience was for nothing. I hope you all enjoyed my review, and I definitely hope you stick around for next month, when I review the final Persona 3 movie.